Welcome to another episode of the Build and Scale Boldly podcast. I'm your host, Letizia Alto, and today we're going to be talking about how to lead your day like a CEO, how to be proactive, not reactive, and protect your energy. So, friends, have you ever had this day where you were super busy, but you get to the end of the day and you weren't actually productive and you just don't feel great about the day, where you kind of reflect back and you're like, what did I actually do? And then you look at your to-do list and maybe it didn't shrink at all. It actually maybe even grew. You didn't actually get the things done that were really important for you to get done that day. Instead, you got a bunch of other stuff done and you just don't feel good. Well, the goal of this podcast today is to really help you have less of those types of days where you didn't get anything done, you weren't really productive, but you were busy. And here's the truth. Successful CEOs, they don't lead their day by reacting to everyone else's agenda. They lead their day by protecting their energy and being proactive and actually working through the things that are really important for them to complete for the business. And I have to tell you, I have fallen into this trap of being busy but not productive, focusing on everyone else's agendas and what they need from me instead of focusing and getting what I needed to get done, the most important things, so many times. And so I think this is a really important episode for all of you, because my guess is you've fallen into this pattern. And today we're really going to focus on, how do you start leading your day like a bold CEO? And I'll share from my own personal experience, because I've definitely failed at this area many times too. So don't feel bad if I'm talking to you and you're like, yes, that happens to me all the time. So as an entrepreneur, why is it so important to have these days where we're focused on the most important things? We're moving forward our agenda and we're ultimately protecting our energy so we don't get to the end of the day, we feel drained, we feel like we actually didn't get anything done, and we just kind of feel restless or kind of icky inside. Well, it's because our energy is our greatest asset and our time is our greatest asset. And so when we spend our time in ways that are not productive, that aren't the most important thing, I mentioned in the first episode, if you heard it, I'm gonna talk about a lot of really good books because I read a lot. And so one of the really incredible books is The One Thing by Gary Keller. And he talks about, what's the most important thing that you need to get done. And so when we aren't focused on that most important thing, we are just reactive to a lot of people around us. And we're pulled in a lot of different directions where people around us need us urgently. Often it's urgently, or they need us to get this done. And we get pulled into those things. And then at the end of the day, we get to the stage where we're like, looking down at our list of what we really wanted to do. Maybe it's a couple things we really wanted to do that day. We didn't get them done. And we're feeling that way. Here's the thing, that protecting your energy is actually not selfish. It's a leadership skill. It's actually the most important thing. So let's talk a little bit about what this looks like in practice to be able to build your day this way, to be able to build your schedule this way, and then actually to follow through. So number one is to schedule your day with intention. And this seems so obvious, but how many times do we sit down at the beginning of the day, we open our email and we start reacting, and we look up and suddenly 2 hours have gone by and we didn't actually get done anything that was actually moving the needle in any meaningful way, because we didn't start the day with intention. We didn't start the day and identify the 2 or 3 things that were most important to us to be able to get done that day to move the business forward. We just got into our email, or we got a text or a message, and we started responding, and we were taking care of what it is that person wanted us to take care of, but not what actually was important to move. And so one of the things you really want to do is sit down at the beginning of the day, or sit down at the beginning of the week. Some people do this on Sunday nights. That's not my practice. My practice is to do this every day, is to sit down. And one of the things to look at is like, what are my priorities? In our businesses, we have 90-day priorities. Every individual has them within the company. And these are the most important things we want to get done in these 90 days that we're going to move these needles forward, because they support our OKRs. And our OKRs are kind of our year-long view of the 3 most important things that we want to do as a business that year. And so every person's 90 days priorities support the OKRs moving forward. And so one of the practices is you can sit down at the beginning of the morning. Do not open your email inbox. Do not look at your messages, because that will just send you on a wild rabbit chase. But actually say, okay, what are my 90-day priorities? And what do I want to move forward today or this week, for example, that I want to make sure that I get done by the end of the week, let's say, or the end of the day? And that way you are really focusing on moving the important pieces forward. Now, some people decide to put focus blocks in, and I know I do that as well, where I will put a focus block for 90 minutes in a couple times a week. And those are the times I'm really focused on moving my 90-day priorities forward. And those focus blocks are really important for me to not have any interruptions, to really focus on creative things that require a lot more of my brain. And once I get into them, then they're really consuming. You get kind of into flow and you're moving something deeply forward instead of being distracted constantly. And so again, if you're doing week-long planning rather than day planning, then you can really make sure that your 90-day priorities get put into those focus blocks and you can make them consistent every single week. This works better for those of us who don't travel all the time. I actually travel 6 months a year. And so sometimes I'll be traveling on, days that I had focus blocks. So for those of us who live this more of a digital nomad life, we have to move some things around sometimes when we're traveling, but every single week I have several focus blocks built in, focused on my 90-day priorities and moving those forward. And the goal of all this, by the way, is to really be the CEO of your business, not the operator of your business, but more of the owner of the business, where you really are taking this global perspective of what needs to be done, and you're making sure you're moving forward the 20% that's going to make the 80% of the difference. The next thing I have for you is really to put yourself first. And this is really probably seems counterintuitive to a lot of people. They may say, well, you're sitting down to do your day. Why wouldn't you start with doing your 90-day priorities, for example? Well, if you're sitting down to do your day and you haven't taken care of yourself has to come first. And again, this is one of those things that will fall by the wayside if you start responding to email or you start doing something else. So you really need to schedule it in for yourself, is to take care of yourself first. Now, what does that look like? Well, it can be different for every single individual, but I highly encourage you to have some sort of exercise in the mornings. Again, if you do the exercise, if you wake up in your 5 a.m. club and you do your exercise and you do maybe meditation or you do journaling or you do reflecting or you spend some time building your schedule before your whole family wakes up, that's great. But if you haven't done that, let's say it's a day that you're jet lagged or whatever and you slept in, or you had a really tough night the night before because your kids were sick and you were up all night, make sure that you have a time block every single day to take care of yourself. Make sure you get your exercise in, make sure you get centering exercises, whether it's meditation, journaling, whatever, running. For some people, running is a meditation, so that you come into the day with a high energy state, having taken care of what was important to you yourself. So you're in a really great, beautiful state is what we would call it. And what that does is it makes the rest of the day easier because you're in great energy. You are expansive, you're open, you're not frustrated, you're not angry. You're actually in a beautiful state where you can make really great decisions and you can interact with your team even better. And so that is a really important thing, is to bring your best self to work every day. And if that means that from 8 to 9 every day, you're taking care of yourself and you start at 9, that's what needs to happen, because you must absolutely take care of yourself first to be able to really produce the best work and also to be able to interact with your team the right way, which makes such a difference on their productivity. Next, you want to use your energy wisely. And by that, I mean, we all have peaks and valleys and each individual is different. For example, I work best in the mornings. I am much more creative. I'm much more focused. My brain is just on in a different way in the mornings. And so what I make sure I do is I actually schedule my mornings where I'm doing the most difficult work, the work that requires me to create. Oftentimes that's content. That's really what I'm focused on in the morning. So one question for you is, are you more of a morning, afternoon, or night individual? When is the right time for you? I know there's a member of my community in my team who works really well at night, right? And so they're often doing the easy stuff in the morning, but they're making sure in the afternoons and the evenings that that's when they want to do a lot of the harder work. So again, this is specific to the individuals, but the key is you're taking advantage of your natural rhythms and your natural rhythm of like, this is the best time for me to work on this type of stuff. That's what you want to do and make sure that you're fitting it in. So for me, for example, I do all my afternoons or like more meetings. And actually, even there, I've limited it where it's only mostly Tuesday and Thursday afternoons that I'm doing meetings. If there's some overflow, I'll do them Mondays and Friday afternoons, but I'm definitely not doing meetings in the morning because that is my best time of the day. I have to also mention here is that I actually have Wednesdays completely clear on my schedule. So Wednesdays are for really prioritizing myself and my relationship with my husband, making sure that we have time to walk together, to touch base together. That's actually some of the most productive time is when at least for me, is when I'm hiking and I'm talking about the business and I'm coming up with ideas. The exercise really helps to lead me to make better ideas, make better decisions. And so it's actually, even though it's a off day, it's actually in a way you get a lot done. It's a very productive day for me. And then also it's the day that I make sure that I can take care of family things. If my kids have dentist appointments or doctor's appointments, or there's anything that I need to do those days, passports, those are the days that I fit it in. And when am I fitting it in? Oh, the afternoon, right? Because I want to make sure my morning is really free. Me, my creativity, the walks or whatever. And if I have some overflow, which is to-do lists that are not as filling, that I can't do on the weekends, then I'm doing them in the afternoon where my energy is already lower and I've used a lot of my good brain thinking in the mornings. The next one is to limit email in general, right? And create a plan where you're going to maybe check email twice a day, for example. And I actually build these into my schedule as buffer time. So I'll build in a 30-minute buffer time in the middle, close to afternoon to lunch, and maybe at the end of the day. And that's just allowing me to make sure that I have some time to check emails, to respond to people, so I'm not the bottleneck in the business, but it's also limiting the amount of time I'm spending on those emails. It's making sure that I'm not spending all of my day on the emails. And what happens if I have an email that requires more thought? Let's say it's an email that says, hey, I want you to review this. This is really important. Then I need to make time in my schedule, maybe the next day, set aside 45 minutes or an hour to be able to review what the person was talking about, because I'm not going to have time for it in my limited 30-minute block to be able to get back to it. And so I have a whole email system, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point, where I'm like having to-dos, and I'm able to take to-dos and put them into my schedule and things like that. So limiting your email, that's really, really helpful, especially when you have an executive assistant, because they can be checking your email. They can make sure that they're going through it, identifying the things you have to read, identifying the things you don't have to read, and taking it out of there. I have to say, I've been through many, many executive assistants, and that's going to be another episode for sure. But I have a really phenomenal one right now, and the amount of email that I have to read has dramatically reduced. And this was something that I didn't think was possible for a long time. Well, actually, no, that's not true. I knew it was possible, but I never found anyone who could do it. And I kept holding out hope that this was going to be possible to reduce my email time significantly. And I have to say that I've now figured that out with a really great EA. And it's an important thing that's going to help you be able to maybe do 1 or 2 30-minute buffer blocks a day and be done with your email. I forgot to mention earlier, but I think it's important to bring up. Another thing that I've done is I block 5 to 6 p.m. every single day for a walk with my husband. Again, recap the day, talk about anything important that we need to talk about, make any decisions. We work together as a couple, and so we're running by each other in meetings or doing work all day, and this is our time to come together and work things out, make decisions, and move forward. But it's also the time to make sure that I'm exercising and walking in the afternoon as well. And so that might be another thing that you consider doing besides those Wednesdays, or some other time in the week where you actually block some time for doing nothing, is maybe think about doing some afternoon walks before the responsibilities of the day with your family kind of step in, and then you're off to the races again, right? Another thing is to delegate like you're a CEO. When you have people on your team, this is a really phenomenal thing to be able to do. Is there something that you're doing that somebody else could be doing, and hand that to that individual? I love EOS, which is Entrepreneurial Operating System, and they have a really cool kind of chart where you can say, it's called Delegate and Elevate, and it's really thinking through, what I like and I'm really good at, what do I not like but I'm good at, what am I not good at but I like, and what am I not good at and I don't like. And that section of not good at and don't like is like the first area you really want to start delegating to individuals. If you don't have a team, I would at least encourage you to have a team at home where maybe you have somebody coming in who's cleaning your house or helping with just decluttering or dishwasher or doing laundry, those types of things. Even if you don't have an executive assistant, maybe your business is kind of small, get some help at home, because that's going to free you up to have even more time. And maybe not time that you're all going to give to your business, maybe time you're going to spend on rest, right? And taking care of yourself and going and exercising or whatever it is. So you have to learn to delegate, even if you don't have a large business that has a couple of employees, but start delegating early in the home with those kind of things that really drag your energy. They're not requiring you. A really great book is Buy Back Your Time, which is thinking about how much your time is worth. If you're doing something that you could pay somebody $15 an hour to do and you're doing it, odds are, if you're a physician, if you're a professional, you should not be doing that task, right? You should be doing something much higher level in your business. And so it's really important to delegate. We will be talking a lot about delegating on this podcast, I'm sure. So just know that this is going to be one of those things that's really going to help you be more proactive instead of reactive, because when you free up that space, now you get to do some thinking time and you get to spend some time thinking about what needs to be done and then going out and being proactive about it instead of just reacting to everything that's happening all around you. And finally, you have to find out what works for you. I've shared some of the things that really work for me that I've figured out over the many, many years. And I have made so many different errors in this space where I have been completely reactive and not proactive and not in control of running my schedule and just responding to other people. But not every system works well for everybody. And so I've shared some systems, things that I do, right? 90-day priority blocks, making sure that I'm looking at my schedule every single day and thinking about the couple things that are really important that I want to move the needle on that day. I talked to you about my Wednesdays off, where largely I'm spending taking care of myself or thinking in ideation or going and doing some life things that I have to do in the afternoons. I talked to you about building that schedule where you're using your most productive time whenever that is for you. I talked about checking your email very infrequently, all those types of things that have worked really, really well for me, but they may not necessarily be right for you. So ultimately, this is a little bit of trial and error. It's trying different things and seeing if they work for you, and finding these kind of rhythms and rituals, whether it's 5 a.m. club or it's, hey, I'm starting at 9 a.m. every day because I'm going to spend the first hour from 8 to 9 taking care of myself. It's really important to remember that rest is important. Again, this is one thing that I have struggled with a lot, is rest and seeing the productivity of rest. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to justify it. When you lead your days with that rest, you will be in a better space to be able to come up with solutions, to be able to interact with your team. And that's really, really important to keeping them motivated, and also to not spending time wastefully, right? When you don't come up with a productive solution because you're exhausted and you just like grab the first thing that comes to you, that actually wastes a lot of time and costs you more time down the road. And so coming well rested to your job or to your business every day is really, really important to actually increase productivity over time. So in wrapping up this episode, I wanted to leave you with a closing question that you can use to be able to help you guide and build your schedules so that you're less reactive and more proactive. And this is a question you can ask right now, which is, what is the one small shift I can make today that will help protect my energy, right? And just make one shift. And then once that's working, you can make another shift. Or maybe you find out that one shift didn't work and then you pivot and you make another shift. This is not something you have to change in one day. This is something that I have learned over time and made little shifts over time and gotten better and better at. And so don't beat yourself up no matter where you are along the journey, and just make one shift at a time. And ultimately you'll build a schedule that really works for you. And I have to mention, sometimes you'll fall off the schedule. That's okay. Then you'll get back on the schedule and you'll remember how amazing it is to be able to have control, to feel in control, to feel like you are running your day, like you are being proactive, that you are on top of the things that are actually really important, instead of reacting to everybody's fire drills all around you, feeling like you got nothing done at the end of the day. and feeling that restlessness, that kind of dis-ease that you feel at the end of the day when you know you have so much you want to get done, but you made no progress on those because you were just reacting to everybody else. Okay, if you love this episode of the Build and Scale Boldly podcast, make sure to subscribe to it, leave us a review, and then share this episode with another female entrepreneur who could really use this information to help them build and scale their business boldly. We'll see you next time.